Let's talk about what it's really like to own a paralyzed dog. I was at the vet the other day with Tyrion, and this guy, maybe in his 50s or 60s, came up to me and was asking me what it's like, because there's some dog out there that he was thinking about or had the opportunity to adopt, who I guess, his back legs weren't working, similar to Tyrion's situation. So I told him that really the hardest part is having to be around like 3 to 4 times a day to express his bladder, because he cannot pee on his own, he's incontinent, and if he doesn't get expressed, it's probably going to lead to a UTI. So that's like really important. You have to be there, which is super hard for most people if you have a 9 to 5, or you're just out of the house more often than not. It's not going to work, or you're going to have to find somebody who can help you out in the middle of the day. The other thing I told him is that Tyrion and I are really lucky because Tyrion's only 15 pounds, but for dogs out there who are 50, 100 pounds, and this happens to them, I cannot even imagine how difficult that would be, because it's so easy for me to just scoop Tyrion up and walk him across the lawn or wherever we have to go into the car. It's easy. But if your dog is bigger and this happens, I mean, power to you. That would be so difficult. You'd probably get really strong though. Another huge misconception that I think about every day, a lot of people feel bad when they see a dog in a wheelchair or a dog with 3 legs. And you don't have to feel bad for them. To be honest, if they're walking around in their wheelchair or with 3 legs, they probably have an owner who treats them really well. If you're an owner who's going to the length of getting a wheelchair or getting a custom anything for your dog, you love your dog. That dog is living a good life. And the reality is that these kinds of dogs, they don't think about it the way humans do. They don't feel bad for themselves. They just wake up and want to play and want to eat and want to make new friends and have fun, and like that's it. He's not sitting here feeling bad for himself because he's paralyzed in his back legs. He doesn't even notice it. He just wants to chase squirrels. So every day I wake up around 7, I take Tyrion outside. It's one of the first things I do. I express his bladder and I express his, I express his bowels as well. I think that can seem really scary to people too, like, ew, gross, I have to touch my dog's butthole. I don't touch it without a glove or without a wipe over my hand or something. It's really not that gross, and it's not that hard to do. And then when it comes to expressing his bladder, it's not that hard either. You just kind of have to, it's one of those things you have to know what you're doing. But it's just a technique. You just squeeze the belly in the right way and he pees. So it's not a huge learning curve. It's not like a crazy skill that'll take you years to master. It's pretty easy. And then we come inside and I make him breakfast, and I put joint supplements and like a UTI prevention chewy in his breakfast every morning. Those are things we did not do prior to his paralysis. But I've come to learn that you probably should, whether your dog's paralyzed or not, be giving them joint supplements or other kinds of supplements. And then he just kind of chills with me. He does not wear his wheelchair inside, usually. I mean, I'm in kind of close quarters right now, so it wouldn't really be to his benefit. He only wears his wheelchair when he's outside and it's like rocky terrain, like if we're on gravel or concrete, any sort of ground that would scrape him up, would get his legs scraped up if he didn't have them protected and in the stirrups of his wheelchair. That's when I would put him in his wheels. But if we're just going outside to hang out and let him soak up some sun and we're in the grass, he's not in his wheelchair. He just drags himself around and he gets around just fine. Honestly, his upper body has become so strong since all of this, but dogs carry even healthy dogs carry 60% of their weight in their upper body. So it's a lot easier for a dog to adapt when their back legs become paralyzed, because their front legs are already used to doing most of the work. Yes, their front legs end up taking on a lot more when they're paralyzed, but it's not the end of the world for them or their bodies. And then I'll be in here, I work from home pretty much, and whenever I have to go run errands or do a work thing outside of the house, most of the time Tyrion comes with me. He likes being in the car and he just likes being included, so I have been bringing him with me a lot more often. especially because I'm living on my own now, so I don't have a partner to help me. Like when before I could just leave Tyrion at home for a few hours and go and just know that he was doing okay and know that somebody was watching him, or even if it's like on, the 2 p.m. time hits, which is when I express his bladder for the second time in the day, I knew that somebody else could take care of that. That's not the case anymore. So I've just been bringing him with me, and I understand that I'm incredibly fortunate to have a remote job, and not everyone does. I think if I had a 9 to 5, I would probably just have to come home on my lunch break every day, and then I would express his bladder then. Okay, I think this is way too dark for me. So I expressed Tyrion's bladder around 7 to 8 a.m., somewhere in there, and then at 2 p.m., and then again at like 6 or 7 p.m., and then around 11 p.m. right before bed. And I always try to express his bowels as well. And sometimes it doesn't work, sometimes it doesn't have anything in the tank, and that's fine. And also, I know people who choose not to express the bowels. But for me, I would rather do that than have surprise poops in the house. And this way too, when I go and express his bowels, then I know that he's like good for the next few hours. So I don't feel nervous about putting him up on the couch or having him on the bed with me, because I know that he's not going to go or have an accident, because again, he cannot, or he can poop on his own, but he can't control when or where. So if I control it, then it makes me feel just have more peace of mind, I guess. And then at bedtime, Tyrion used to sleep in the bed with me, but not since his paralysis, because I just get nervous about the idea of him jumping off the bed in the middle of the night and then just hurting himself further. He doesn't have any spinal issues. Tyrion is paralyzed due to an autoimmune disease, not IVDD or any sort of disc or vertebrae problems. But nonetheless, I just don't want him jumping off in a weird way, landing in a weird way, hurting himself more. So the only time I have him up on the bed or on the couch is when I'm there with him. And he knows too, since everything went down, he has understood, and I've trained him he knows he's not allowed to jump off of anything or go down any stairs. He knows that, but you just never know what could happen. So I have 2 beds set up for him always. At night, because every once in a while, it's not common. He hasn't had a poop accident in months, because I am so diligent about trying to express him multiple times a day. But it has happened in the past. You can't control it. It happens, and that's why I like to have 2 beds in the room in case he has an accident in one. He'll go and crawl into his other one, and then I take him to hydrotherapy once a week. This is not necessary, and it is expensive. But I don't want people to think that you can't have a paralyzed dog unless you're loaded. I'm not loaded, but this is how I choose to spend my money. But if I was in a pinch, I would probably just get like a kiddie pool and do exercises with him in there myself. Or I would get a little walking pad and try to put him on the walking pad and figure it out. There are so many exercises you can do with your dog at home. You don't have to pay somebody else to do it. So I don't want people to think that having a disabled dog is like the most expensive thing in the world. It is, it can be, but there's a lot of choice to that too. How much care and physical therapy and work you want to pay someone else to do versus doing yourself. And then when I go out of town, I've been lucky enough to have found a fabulous babysitter for Tyrion, who also is the technician who runs his hydrotherapy once a week. So she knows him pretty well and he likes her. And because she does her hydrotherapy at like the vet clinic, at this ER vet, she sees disabled dogs, paralyzed dogs, incontinent dogs all the time. So she's very familiar with expressing bladders and bowels, and that doesn't freak her out. So I'm really lucky to have found that connection for whenever I go out of town, because I did try to call around before I knew that she was an option. I called around to different boarding places and got turned away quite a few times, which was incredibly frustrating. And the reason they turned me away wasn't even like, oh, we're not vets, we have no idea how to express bladders. If that was the case, that would have been understandable. But the reason was that they were like, oh, he moves a little bit differently than most dogs. We don't want that to like freak out the other dogs. We don't know how that's gonna how he's gonna do socially. And I'm like, he's a social guy. What are you talking about? He's fine. Yeah, he scoots around, but I don't think, we go to the dog park all the time. Nobody's had an issue with him scooting or him being in his wheelchair. I do understand that some dogs can be reactive to wheels, like skateboards or bikes and whatnot, and so that's always on my mind when we go to the dog park. But as far as I've ever seen at boarding places, you typically have two areas. It's like high energy, high active dogs, and then like the chiller dogs or the older dogs. Just put them with the chill dogs. Anyways, it doesn't matter now because I have Maddie and she's so amazing. So if this does happen to your dog, you definitely want to ask around at the vet, I think is the best spot, because they're going to be more informed and more experienced. And there's probably some young people at the vet who are looking, for a little extra money on the side, and they'll watch your dogs and you can feel really confident knowing that they're in good hands. All of this to say that if you want to make it happen, it's possible. It's hard. It's hard. It can be really hard at times, but it's definitely possible. And I don't know because I'm not a parent yet, but I imagine it's kind of similar in the sense like when you bring a baby home, your life changes and you just adapt and you just make it work. My life is a lot different than it was before Tyrion became paralyzed, and I did lose some freedoms, and I can't just leave him home alone for 8 or 10 hours. I didn't do that very often before, but nonetheless, it's just not an option anymore. And it's also one of those things too, where it's a lot easier if you have a village. But I will say that the lessons I've learned from Tyrion and from going through this experience with him have been so impactful and so good for me that I wouldn't change anything for the world. I wouldn't change anything. I think that the scariest thing about this is that it usually happens to dogs out of nowhere. There are no warning signs really. Typically it happens overnight, whether it's IVDD or GME, like in Tyrion's case. So then you're hit with this situation and you're like, what the fuck do I do now? I don't know anything about owning a paralyzed dog. I've never had to express a dog's bladder. I didn't even know you could do that. Is this possible? Do I put him down? The vet's telling me that putting him down is an option. Do I listen to them? It's really hard to know what to do. And it was a huge learning curve. I mean, it took me, I'm still learning. I still don't know everything. And we're almost 1.5 years into this. But you just take it day by day. And I have met some of the coolest people in this virtual disabled dog community that we've found online, and that has been incredibly helpful to get advice. And everybody has gone through it. Everybody knows how hard it is. So there are a lot of people out there willing to talk to you and give you advice. Just reach out if you need it. I am answering questions in my DMs every day. Hang on, I gotta focus for this part. So if this is happening to your dog, or if it ever happens to your dog in the future, as long as they're not in pain, that's the thing. I mean, Tyrion's not in any pain. If he was, I think it'd be a totally different story. If your dog is in pain and there's no meds or things you can do to change that, I don't think that's fair to the dog to keep them alive through that. But if your dog can heal and is not in pain, you can do this. It's an adjustment and it's hard at times, but it's very doable. And your dog doesn't change. They are still the same dog that you love. Their personalities don't change. Just the way they get around changes. But other than that, he still growls. He still thinks he's tough. Wants to play tug of war, and he is tough. It's probably tougher than most. If you have any questions or if you want advice, you can DM me on TikTok or Instagram. I'll probably see it a lot quicker than I would on here. So, good luck. You got this. Good catch.